Good afternoon. This is Paul with you. I just released my video about a day late. I have problems with my car, of all things, and that is, to say the least, making it very hard for me. But so far I am hanging in, and I have adjusted something I've had to do with this Volkswagen Bug, from the lights turning off to the everything. It's been all kinds of weird problems with that car. So I don't know what to say about it. I'm actively looking for another vehicle, but I was really in desperate situation a couple days ago when it happened. But I've been able to get the car to operate. Let's just put it to you that way. I won't expound upon that. But I might get another car on Monday. We'll see. There is a vehicle I want. It's a lot more money than I want to spend, but I may. So let's just go ahead and get into it. And get into the news. Happy 4th of July to everybody. Number 16. I didn't see who you were. If you want me to subscribe to you, leave a message on this video or one of my recent videos, and I'll subscribe to you gladly. I can't see them come in. Okay, let's just go ahead and get into it. It's actually a business day today, but there's almost nobody here where I work. And I had to buy 6 of these iced teas. These are 2 liters for you foreigners, and for the Americans, half gallon. It's the only thing that I found that makes sense at Wawa. You get 2 of these for $5. Everything is an arm and a leg over at Wawa. It's got this unusual protocol of you have to go and break everybody up in line to go get a cup, to which they say, what cup do you want? Do you want a small, medium, or large? You know what I mean? It's a real pain in the ass. It's just weird. And that's just how that place is. But for today, and they did not turn the air conditioning off yet. That won't go off until 6, I believe, p.m. And then I'll have to just work it out and get through it. Now, these are delicious. I highly recommend this. And just to let you know, Fred Gwynne, the actor who played Herman Munster in the Munsters, not the Addams Family. There are 2 types of people who like the Addams Family and people who like the Munsters. I fell in the Munsters category because it was just too creepy. I just couldn't get involved with the Addams Family. It was just too weird. The Munsters seemed much more friendly to me. So, anyways, Fred Gwynne, the poor man was 6'9" or 6'10", and they put him in this horrible plastic suit. Don't forget that was in the mid-60s, so there was no technology. And they would keep him in there for hours making these scenes. And he suffocated so much, he almost passed out all the time. And when he would get out of those stupid big boots and all that 60-pound outfit, he would drink gallons and gallons of iced tea. That's what his workmate said. Now, excuse me while I take a sip of this diet iced tea. Well, I'll tell you something. I know it's not very good for you, but boy, diet iced tea really hits the spot. It's like Gatorade. You know, Gatorade tastes pretty good when you're overheated. Now let's go ahead and get in the markets. We'll try to run this quick. You have a life to live. You want to enjoy your pre-holiday festivities. Let's do it. Bitcoin up $660, $62,120. The Dow up 600 points, finding its mojo, up 1.15%. Let's take a look at the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ is down 207 points, down about 0.75% or so. And we will check oil, and $68.78. It's flat, up a very small portion. and we will check out AppMex and find out what the metals are doing, and then we get into the news. We did that quick. Okay, we've got silver at up $1.40. It sets at $63.12. That's good for you silver holders, because it was down to like $56.80. I mean, it was down to I think $57, and gold fell under 4,000, I believe. It could have been substantially under 4,000 last week early. Up $50 today, 4,193. Now let's get right in to I think I forgot something, but we'll just have to move on, okay? Welcome subs, good to have you here with me. Please bear with me because my transmission's fucked up on my car. I had to train myself now, ongoing, to reverse first gear with second gear. It's like a fucking head trip. And that's not exactly accurate. They all fucking hide. So the only one I can find for sure, in a weird way by pressing down and going up, which is supposed to be reversed, is first gear, which I am eternally grateful for, because now at least I can I got stuck. They closed 3 lanes of fucking traffic yesterday. And I had to stop and go for fucking 40 minutes. I mean, if I didn't find that first gear, you understand? That's either fried clutch or motor Mazal blaze or whatever, okay? All right, first thing, the heat. Grid operator orders emergency steps to avoid large-scale outages. They're probably going to have running blackouts. Data centers draining power. Now, folks, there are AI centers. That's probably what these are. And they're keeping and storing data. And that takes up massive amounts of power. You also have Bitcoin, which requires city amounts of energy to do in some cases. All right, let's see. DC, hotter than 99% of world. It's maybe hotter than here. It's hot here, though, I can tell you that. And it says, shock poll. Americans don't even know what they're celebrating. That's because they can't come here to this channel. You understand? When you come to this channel, you become a god yourself. It's the truth, because you listen to me and you take from me, and that can only help you. Do you folks understand? Do you know the truth? I was interested when I was younger, like 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago. I was interested in the Civil War. It's a very easy concept to understand. The Revolutionary War was a little harder and a little more difficult to understand. If you understood how men in the army were starving at that time in the cold with frostbite conditions, and anyone that's lived in New England knows how horrible it is. Sometimes it can go up to 61 degrees. And then in 10 hours, you're at 8 degrees above zero. It's just absolutely horrendous. It's just, you can't even ski up there because it melts and then it freezes, and then you get bulletproof conditions where you can't take a pick and pound to the snow because it freezes on top. It's awful. I have a love for it in my heart. I climbed a mountain called Mount Mooslok, and it's a tribe of Indians up there, named after them. And a lot of people don't know, you'll know now, the highest winds ever recorded on planet Earth came out of New Hampshire, not far from Moosilauke. I climbed that mountain with the Outward Bound program with a bunch of retards and fuck-ups. I guess I was one with them because I got put in there. I knew I was going to want to remember that time. This is just for color, by the way. When we got to the meeting place up at top, it was not at the true summit. The true summit was about 250, 300 yards, maybe. I might be exaggerating. It's probably at least a couple hundred yards. It was on a narrow cliff, a peak that went across the mountain. There was enough room to walk, but not much. As a result, they put things that look like tombstones that were rocks on one side where the wind normally came. They may have been on the other side too, I don't remember. All I remember is looking out toward the east, and I swear to God, it just looked like Pluto to me. It just looked like Pluto. There were mountains and mountains of ice sheets. I'll never forget that. I mean, I don't know if they ever made that habitable. I don't know. It looked to me like it was going toward eastern Canada. Maybe it was to the north. It was bizarre. And I had bought goggles with me on the hike up, which was not easy. And I also bought a raincoat so that it would block the wind. I knew it was going to be tough. There were little stone blocks that went up about 24, 28 inches. And the idea was to sit down behind them because the wind, when it's 8 degrees or 10 degrees above freezing, it's real bad. And I'll never forget it. I got there a little bit later than the other guy. And the other guy that I taught how to spin the Frisbee on my finger, he was a good guy. I liked him. I saw him coming back, and his face was just pure red, like a beet. Not like a lobster, like a beet. It was red. And it was frozen solid. Because it might have been 300 yards. It was far, but they wanted to get to it. So they went out without a hat. Or if they had a hat, they didn't have anything to cover. I had my goggles, I put them on, and I think I had a plate underneath it too. I think I had a clip-on plate that was for motorcycles. And I looked forward to that. I didn't know how hard it was going to be, but I couldn't get my vest all the way on, but I pulled it on as much as I could. It was nothing more than a raincoat. And I got up there. And I remember looking off at that thing that looked like the fucking polar caps on fucking Neptune or something. And then on the other side, I looked out, and it just looked like grids of farming country. You know what I mean? Brownish gray. Beautiful dark blue sky, sunny. And I just looked off, and it was one of the times in my life that I remember that I'll never forget. And it occurred to me, and I mean, I was really bundled up. I was wearing mittens, not gloves. You couldn't wear gloves. It was too cold and too windy. And I remember it occurred to me that I wanted to keep something and treasure something as a keepsake. So I took my boots and I kicked a couple stones, the little pebbles. They wouldn't come up. But after I kicked enough, I got a couple that were down on the ground. So I took my mouth and I took off my mitten and I reached down and I took these little pebbles and I put them in my jacket pocket, and it froze solid. I couldn't get because there's like a little ring that, a cuff, you know, it goes small. That froze solid. And also what happened was on the top of that very cold mountain, there was fungus. It looked like a flower. It was red, hard red. And I said, geez, my mom would like that. I'm going to give it to her. So I went and I had to pull that by hand. I got it in and I had to, for like 5 minutes to get to the point where I could get and I didn't want to take my other mitten off, you know? And that's the time I'll always remember in my life. That was and I mean, I've been to the mountains in Colorado and so forth, but that was really something very beautiful and very special to me. So I'll never forget that. As I got back, the bullies that were bullying me, and another kid who I saved his life, and another kid that was real bad. I was really scared of him. He was a bad kid. And thank God I had a little bit of money on me. I told this story before. I forget what that guy's name was, but I was afraid of him. Not scared of him. I was afraid of him. Flat out. And we all lived together autonomously there. And the dorm parent there was a fucking retard jerk off. So, you know, he was just an idiot. So it was every kid for himself. And yeah, they were kicking us down, and we had to get back up. And oh my God, I haven't told that story in a while. I'll tell you now. Of all times, for my neck to go out, it went like this, and I couldn't move it. I mean, I couldn't move it. It was so painful, and it just locked. And the kids got together. There were about 12 of us, 10 or 12 of us. And they just got together. They said they weren't going to have it. And I said, what do you mean we're not going to have it? And they said, hey, stay still. And then about 4 of the kids came up and grabbed me and held my arms. And, it was a little bit beyond saying, what are you doing? And, the kids held me, and the one guy there that I didn't care for much, I guess they thought I was going to get them in trouble. You know what I mean? It was just highly irregular. And I mean, my neck was like this. It was all fucked up. I really couldn't move it. It was so painful. And, 4 of them grabbed me, and the other one took my head and he went like that. And I went, ah! But then I turned my neck and I said, thanks. And that happens. You can talk to people every once in a while that will tell you the same thing. They're on Outward Bound or whatever. And boy, that was really something. I was very grateful to them after that, because I could have never done it myself. I wouldn't have the guts. But anyways, it was really tough. So when we came back down from the mountain, they were crying. The one black kid that was bizarre, he was all fucked up. He had a pin, they used to put pins in clothing to keep them together. He took a pin and he kept poking people. I mean, that shit is no fucking good. It's no fucking fun. It gives you a serious phobia. You know what I mean? Because that was real nasty. So he was real fucked up in his head. It was a military school, the last stop to prison or, detainment. And some of them already were. It was like a fucking last stop to jail. And I did it because I was too, I don't even want to get into it, but, I didn't do drugs. I couldn't pull it together with my schoolwork. I wasn't smart. And the teachers didn't like me, and the students didn't like me, et cetera, et cetera. I was pretty good at baseball. I won trophies and stuff, but that was about it. So we came down off the mountain. Him and the other reject there that knocked me down. I had a bad neck, and I was walking. It was about 2 miles from that house that we were staying into the school, a 1-room schoolhouse that had lift-up windows that were huge. I'm not talking about regular windows. I'm talking about windows that took 2 strong people to open, that were 8 or 9 feet tall, that you opened and then had to put a prop rod in there on each side. And they did that because they didn't understand what was going on. In New Hampshire, you only get something like 53 days or 51 days of sunshine. The rest is only, if at best, partial. You go out to throw the football around and you're stepping on mud that froze, and it's tundra. So it's always cold, and it's always overcast in Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, and all that. Even Boston can be like that. But especially up in New Hampshire and Vermont. So, I remember coming down off that. And then once we got about halfway down that mountain, you could take off your clothes. It was not hot at all. We could go out in a vest, as a matter of fact. Our bodies were functioning pretty well, and I was 17 at that time, or 16, whatever, pretty good shape. And it's just something that I always remember. But those kids were pushing me over to the ground, and that ground is cold, when it's freezing and the wind is blowing and stuff. But I knew, it was another kid that was picking. There were other kids that were picking on. He wasn't really my friend, but he wasn't my enemy. I kind of liked him, but he was weak like me. And but I knew I had to get up. When you got 2 or 3 kids pushing you down, you got to get back up, because if you don't, if you sit there and you cry like a baby, it's just going to get worse. Take it from me. You know that I'm not like a real violent person, but that's a true story. When they tell you to get up, get up. Even if they kill you, you'll die with dignity, because you won't have any dignity at all, and it's not the point. They will come down on you worse. Trust me when I tell you. So I'll finish out this story. This kid that I was scared to death of, I was lucky I had money, because I had like $25 on me, which was a fortune in those days, in 1979. And that kid got his clothes from the school. And he had a goose down jacket that was a nice one at the time. They were expensive back then. Now they've come down. Now they've gone to imitation buffer jackets. But the goose down was the best, and still is. except if you get it wet, then you're fucked over. But if you keep it dry, it's not bad. That's why you put water repellent on those, because if they soak and they get like light rain, heavy rain on it, and then it freezes, you're fucked over with goose down. That's why they went to synthetic stuff. For those long-term camping events, 4 or 5 days, I mean, you could die from the cold. Even overnight, you could die if it rains, freezes. I had about $25 on me, and somehow the word got out that I had a few bucks. And the kid already threatened me. He had already threatened me. I think he said he was going to kill me or something. I'm paraphrasing slightly. Cream you, maybe was the exact colloquial term at the time. And it's something like that. It was not friendly, for sure. At least not over friendly. And somehow he found out that I had money. It sounds like it was bad. It turned out to save my neck. Because the school bought him all that clothing to come. They buy him good gloves, they buy him a good hat, and they have to give him good stuff. And the place they went was Bob's Surplus. And I played with Bob's son when I was a kid, when I was 9, 10 years old. I forget what his name was. Eric, I think was his name. He was a Jewish kid. And his father was Bob. I can't remember his last name now, but it was Bob's Surplus. It was there in Middletown, Connecticut for a long, long time. I forget his name. He was Jewish. I forgot what his name was now. And he had that store for many, many years. And now it's gone. Now it's not his anymore. It's in somebody else's name. Bob, I can't remember now. But anyways, the kid came up to me and he said, "You want to buy my jacket?" Which meant I'm buying his jacket. Now I had my own jacket. But I wanted to buy it for my stepfather because it was real light and he had polio. I wanted to buy it for him. And I said, "How much do you want?" And I'll never forget, this probably saved my neck. And he says, $5. And I said, "I can't do that." I said, "It's a $40 jacket. How about $20? And he took it. And he was grateful to get it because he could go out and get fucking cigs and go-go juice and all that. So I did just the right thing, which was I gave him more than what he asked for because I thought it was worth it. I would have paid $20 for it. I was low on money. Maybe I gave him 15, but I think I gave him 15 because I bought something else and I had a little money left over. I forgot I bought something else, like something like a vest or something like that. But anyways, this guy, we woke up on the mountain and they were making a big giant kettle like this, a big one, the size of your body. And they were making like for oatmeal or something. It was boiling hot. And my friend there was sitting right there, right in front of that hot water kettle. And I mean, it was huge. And that guy was on the other side, and I knew what the game was. Don't ask me how I knew. But I knew that he would charge that kid, and he would go over with him on top of the boiling water, using him as that bad kid that I sold the jacket to. I don't think he would have even felt the heat if he got burned. I don't think he even would. He was that kind of crazy kid. And we are not talking about kids. We're talking about 17-year-olds here. Maybe 18 in some cases. And that's what he was. And something told me that he was going to go and knock into him, and it was going to be quick. And somehow I got on guard, and sure enough, he got up and charged him on a low bull kind of run. And I was able to intercept him right at the hip. And it pushed both of them off the fire. It knocked out a couple pieces of the rock that was burning, that burning stuff. And maybe the kid on bottom got a little bit of ash on him and it probably burned him a little bit. But I don't even know what we would have done up there. So you can thank me for being a good person and a brave person at that time. And that guy never threatened me as far as I know. And then I sold him the jacket. I think he told me at that point, he says, "I'm going to cream you" or something else. But I didn't want to see the kid get third-degree burns. I mean, a kettle this big of a cauldron, that they would make for coffee and for oatmeal for 15 people. So figure it out, or 12 people. So we got down about halfway, and there was like no more problems of being cold. And then we went home like the next day. They took us back to Connecticut to that reform school, essentially. So anyways, that was brought to you for color. Now, I probably forgot something else, but no matter. We will plod forward. I'm not going to talk about politics today, because who wants to talk about politics the day before? And hold on, folks, because it's locking up here, so stand by. Okay, this thing had frozen up here, so the first thing, don't worry, I didn't forget. We're not going to do the news. This is going to be a strict story time. The reason being is because probably a lot of the people that are here are 60 plus. I'm 63. It's normal that when I put dye in my hair and so forth and I lose a little bit of weight, I can still look like I'm in my 50s. It's just pretty honest. And I was a slow bloomer. So, when I was 15, I looked like I was 11. That was the truth, maybe 11 or 12. I was a real late bloomer. So, that kind of pays off in later life. Now, I had made a boast to you, not really a boast, but a claim, that New Hampshire was the place where they recorded the highest winds on planet Earth. I'm not sure about that, because we have the jet stream, which is why when you take a plane to Asia, to Philippines, it takes an extra 2 or 3 hours to get there. On the way back, you do it in 3 hours less, because that's how strong those jet streams were. The jet stream is coming from Asia. Also, in World War II, the Japanese, with very slim rice paper, they made bombs to send to the west coast of the United States. And they were smart enough to know that the jet stream would carry them there. And they finally realized they were being launched from Okinawa. It was some island in Okinawa. And they traced the rice paper back to it. And it killed a few people. They didn't know what it was, and they went over there and it blew up. They had a very crude altimeter and navigational aid, but they were about as simple as a floating balloon with a bomb on them. And the United States military and the government hid it from the people. They did not want that getting out. But it did claim a couple lives, I know that for sure. Now, let's take a look at the highest winds on Earth, and I'm gonna say 231. That's my guess. 231 miles an hour. I can't remember the name of the place, but it's in New Hampshire. Where were the highest winds on planet Earth ever recorded? Sorry. Where were the highest winds on planet Earth recorded? The windiest spots on Earth are an incredible life experience. On April 12th, 1934, Mount Washington, I believe that's in New Hampshire. I knew it, but I forgot the name of it. The Mount Washington Observatory staff recorded the highest surface wind ever measured at, oh my God, I can't believe this, 372 kilometers per hour, 231 miles per hour. I have not checked that in a long time. That was a very precise guesstimate. Let's watch this. This is the highest surface winds. It's only 17 seconds.
Listen, did you know that the strongest gust of wind ever recorded on Earth was 253 miles an hour? Well, now you do.
Okay, so now they're saying 253. I knew it was somewhere around there because I knew it had to be stronger than 211 and 212 miles an hour, because the jet stream blows at around 200 miles per hour from Asia to California. Okay, let me not bore you. We're almost done with the story, and don't worry, there'll be other exciting stories too. coming up here at this channel. Mostly it's for the plus 60 crowd because, you know, they're the only ones that remember Johnny Quest. They're the only ones that remember the year before that. I was in, it was a place that Nelson Rockefeller owned. It was called Woodstock, Vermont. Not Woodstock, New York, where all the hippies went, but Woodstock, Vermont. It's a quaint little tiny city, and it's not very big. And I went to school there, a public school, which is as good as any private school, in my opinion, pretty much. It was so small that people could tell if you changed your shoelaces on your shoes. I mean, that was no joke. My stepfather, my Jewish stepfather, told me about that, and he was right. You know, everybody had the same first three digits, 347 on their phone number. You know, it was one of those kind of towns. There weren't many people in it. And I was alone there, you know, and fending for myself, and I had really bad kids because my mom kind of got me into an American Indian school. And, you know, I wasn't American Indian per se. I mean, you know, my Granny Barker came down. She was full-blooded Cherokee Indian, but, you know, I wasn't being raised on a reservation or anything. But I still have quarter Indian blood, Cherokee, right? So my Granny Barker came over to Connecticut when I was just a little shaver there. I think I was around 5 years old or 6 years old. And she says, "I'm your Granny Barker." And I said, "Geez, you're tall and you're skinny." And she said, "Powell, do you know where I can get a new rear end?" I said, "No." She said, "'Cause this one's got a hole in it." And that's Cherokee humor for you. I know a lot of you Cherokee won't like to admit that, but my Granny Barker was full-blooded Cherokee who lived in South Carolina. Okay? Believe me when I tell you, right outside Columbia, South Carolina, as I recall. I forget the name of the actual town. But anyways, my mom kind of got me in there. And it wasn't a good idea because the American Indians did not accept me. On top of being slow, I did not look like I was Indian, per se. So it was a double negative there. And just to say the least, I did not have a good time there. Although I took it the best out of it of what I could. And I remember, and some of you that are my age, 60 plus, maybe even 55, but probably mostly like about 60, they used to have these grocery stores that you could go into, and I think you had to spend like $5 in groceries, but it might have varied. But you could buy a whole china set, and they had one piece. They had all the pieces. A lot of the places had the whole pieces. They had it on one side. Other pieces would come in every week or every 2 weeks or whatever it was. And the whole idea was to get the whole set. They had a butter dish. They had a ring for the napkin. They had plates. They had teacups. They had the teacup holder. All these different things. And I really wanted to get the set for my mom. Not because I was like gay and I wanted to use it. I just wanted to get it for my mom because I thought it was pretty, you know. Some of those were kind of pretty at the time. And let's see, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to check to see if they have it. How's that? Okay? I'm going to ask Google. Examples of the china sets that you put together by buying at $2 or $3 or $4 for every piece at the grocery store. At the grocery stores in the late 70s. They were like this, you know, rustic looking, and yeah, ShopRite. Okay, ShopRite was a store in Connecticut. Oh, it was the ShopRite? It said in the early 70s, buy 3 for the groceries, and for 59 cents you got a plate. And this one says here, Country Living. Do you remember when grocery stores had those sets? And they were beautiful. Usually they were in this kind of arrangement right here. It had a rustic, like this. Yes, they were beautiful. You know, they were beautiful. That was the kind of arrangement that they were. And I remember they had these, and there was always a catch. You had to spend like $3 in groceries, and then you could buy, for 59 cents. But I think at that time, that was in the early 70s. This was in the late 70s, probably 79. It was 1979 in December or November, whatever it was, October. So, yeah, that was, and they were like maybe $1.19 at that time. It was still a good deal, And I put together, I think, I put a whole set together and took it back to my mom. Boy, that was really something. My days, I did not have it, life wasn't easy for me as a kid. Like Rodney Dangerfield would say, I used the wrong finger to go hitchhiking. He's a trip if you ever listen to him. That was my life in 1979, and in 78 I was buying those dishes because I was constantly changing schools. And the American Indians, to finish that story, they did not like me at all. And I told that story. I'll tell it again. It does not do me any justice, but I'll tell you anyway. There was a kid named Marvin, and he was Navajo Indian, and they won the war for us because the Japanese broke every code that we ever tried to keep from them. They broke it. And the British were also very good. They broke the Enigma code, as I recall, which was the German little box that just changed the letters around and made it very difficult to understand what they were typing and what they were sending. But it had a flaw. The Enigma machine was a little box like this, was like a typewriter. And they sent these messages out, and you couldn't figure out what the fuck they were saying, because the G was an F, the F was an S, the S was a Q, everything, you could rearrange it, and it had 3 different things that would change the platform dynamics. They had 3 different things that you could plug in, making it billions and billions and billions of combinations, not millions, billions. And this was analog. It had nothing to do with computers, or very little. If it was computerized, it was very minor. So what happened was they had the code talkers and the wind talkers. And the reason they call it wind talkers is because Navajo Indians talk in reverse English. So when they, and this isn't accurate, but if you wanted to say, hi, hello, how are you? It would be, like you couldn't even figure out the fuck they're saying, because I remember we had regular telephones, and I remember Marvin calling to his family, and his family cussing him out because he wasn't doing well in school because they had a lot of drugs there. It was the first time I saw cocaine, and they offered it to me, but I didn't take it. But I remember him taking the bag and punching it in there and tasting it and doing it. But there were virtually all the Indians were fucked up, bad. There were some exceptions to that, but even they did it. The ones that were successful. There was one that I know didn't. Maybe he smoked pot a little bit. That's it. But most of them were into cocaine and hard alcohol. So, anyways, they didn't take kindly to me being there. They felt, properly so, that even though I'm a quarter Cherokee, I didn't understand anything about, that wasn't my thing. My dad was European, which most of my blood is. So, they didn't care for it. And Marvin asked me to go play, what's the name of the game that the Indians played? They're the best at it. Lacrosse. Folks, you don't ever want to play lacrosse. All the Indians played over there, and when we came in at night, I remember the guy taking back, it was right here. I mean, I don't know how he didn't die. Could have stopped his heart. The lacrosse ball, which was like a rubberized ball, but it was heavier than a baseball. It hit him right here, and right on the tip here. And he had like a grapefruit-sized, not only a welt, but it was like a black and blue, and it went deep into his skin, and it looked like purple grapefruit, orange and stuff. It was horrible. And he said, here, grab one of these sticks. He says, let's play catch. So I went out with him, and he went like, 50, 60 yards away, if not more. And he took that damn thing and went, whoop, like that. And I put and I was good at baseball at the time too. You know, I was good at baseball. And I put that little net up there, and it went way, way back. You know, and they were crazy. These guys were nuts. As I recall, they had an accident, and a couple of them got seriously hurt because they were fucked up driving. But anyways, that's another matter for another time. But you know, I took what I could from it. I was probably saying something, and I forgot the story now. But it was about the wind talkers, the Navajo, because the truth is, in Navajo, you could say the same exact words in Navajo, and they mean something completely different. So you could say, Inatka, and that would be, if you said that and you copied it, if you didn't say it right, with the right inflection, it meant something completely different. It's one of the hardest languages to learn. It's bizarre. And that's who won World War II for us, were the code talkers. So what I was talking about Marvin, that kid that used to live in the next room from mine. But anyways, to close the story out, he was trying to size me up, and I didn't know it. Nobody else was home in the dorm. It was just me and him. I kind of liked him. I liked him. I never really saw him use hard drugs, but I'm sure he did it. But to me, I always felt like Marvin. He was a skinny kid. I still remember his name. His name is Marvin Ketchum, which is a famous Indian name. And he had a good heart. And we're talking, and he's saying, why are you here? You know, like he was kind of like trying to drop the hints to try to get me to, you know, and he realized after a while my mom was putting me up to all of this. And it got to the point where he just didn't have it. He wouldn't have it anymore. And he jumped on me, and he pulled his hand up like this, and he screamed. And like I'm struggling like this, and I just let go. Because I knew I had nothing more to do with this. There was nothing I could do. And it's one of the times that I'm kind of embarrassed in my life about things. And I just let go. And Marvin let go of my shirt and put his hand down, and he wept and walked back to his room. I'll never forget that. He had a good heart. But they have, some of the Indians have such burning anger in them, you know, for the whites. What they won't tell you is that the Indians themselves, and anybody that knows true history, my mom never admitted to this, but the American Indians had tribe-on-tribe warfare, some of them. That was the most gruesome warfare that you ever saw. Believe me when I tell you. That's fact. And I know that because I was reading some of the not manuals, but they actually wrote books in the late 1700s up in New England. And it was either the early 1800s or the late 1700s. It was no earlier than the late 1700s. And the Indians were tired of the whites moving in on their land and taking over. And it may have been very early 1800. And what they would do, it wasn't uncommon. The Indians were getting sick because they were getting the diseases that the people that came from England had already had, were exposed to this. They were exposed to all kinds of gonorrhea and the flu and all this, scarlet fever, all that kind of stuff. And their bodies were more immune. The American Indians would die, a great portion of them. And finally, the medicine men figured out what it was. And it took them a long, long time to explain to the others that they had to copulate and accept the whites sexually, to copulate, because they needed their blood and their genetics, and they were separating themselves from it. This happened to many, many tribes, especially up in the Northeast. That's violent weather. And in the winter, you could die easily at any time. And our pioneers, they died commonly too. They still got scarlet fever and whooping cough and all that. It was absolutely awful. And some of those winters were horrible. So they're tough people, but they had fought among their own tribes, other tribes, and were exposed to some of the most horrendous fighting and results of fighting that you had ever seen. So what I was telling you about the book, people would get, you have to have a bindery, but there's ways to do it where you can make like a little book. And people would experience things at that time, and they would write stories on it. Now, whether or not they embellished it, we don't know or not. But I would imagine that they didn't do too much embellishing. And they wrote a story about a young lad who was around 16 years old, 15 or 16. He wasn't less than that. And maybe it was the Huron, I forgot, but they had shaved heads. And they kidnapped him and took him from his family. And they kept him for about, I forget how long it was, maybe a year. They took him for, I think, for about a year. And they grabbed the things that he had with him, which were writing utensils, paper, and things like this, maybe a Bible or something like that. I forgot. I don't even know if he had that. And they took him, and the first thing that they did is they beat the shit out of him, because that's what they did to you. When you hear about running the gauntlet, that's what you did. These Indians would have fucking tomahawks and stuff, and they had a big piece of rock in there, pointed rock, and that could fuck you up and crack your skull. And they made you run down the line, and they would beat you. And if you didn't make it through, you died, or nothing good would come of it. So after that, they gave him to the women, and the women took him to this creek, and they had to shave him. And they did it by taking out his hair, little bits at a time, and ripping it out. And he mentioned in the book that he wrote that they thought that they were killing him. But after they did that, they acclimated him to the women, and then they gave him many, many women to copulate with. And I think he stayed there for about maybe like 9 or 10 months. Maybe it was a little less. I don't know. They felt we were ugly. That's what they saw us as. But they knew, the medicine men knew that this is what had to be done in order for them to not get so many people by percentage sick in their tribes. And when he was done, they came over to him, and they gave him his whatever it was he was writing on, his utensils, and the guy said that he felt like some kind of love for them, because they realized they were going to let him go home, and he knew what they were doing, or I guess he knew. He put it together. But interesting, when you learn about this country, you learn how important the American Indians were to this country, and how much we were taken by them, how much of us we are, courtesy of the American Indian. It's totally different than anywhere else. This is a very, very unique culture. Even in the Midwest, you got Blackfoot, you got the Sioux, you got I'm drawing a blank, but you got the Algonquin in the east, and I forgot the Cheyenne out in the west, and all these different Pagusets in the east, all these different tribes. And that's what made us who we are. And now that's kind of left. And now we've made it down to a bunch of stupid people that just know that on the 4th of July, we have barbecues. And that's kind of like what it is, I saw it, like I told you yesterday, I saw the Uncle Sam, and I saw the red, white, and blue this, and that's the decorator kit that you get and put on your lawn. They wouldn't know that story. You could bet your life on it, they wouldn't know that story. Why? Because they're not a god. And they have different things. When I go and I research something, The natural thing that I do is go to important things. That's what makes me a god, not you. You'll go to GTA 5 or whatever it is. I don't. I want to know why we are. Anyways, my son doesn't even understand it. He's all about that video game stuff too. He has no interest in books or anything of meaningful value, I'm sorry to say. Take care, folks. This was a long one, 50 minutes. Good to be back with you. And I will see you at the movies. Have a good 4th of July weekend. I may be back with you tomorrow if I can. Bye.